Hello and welcome to the panel discussion on smart cities. I'm Mrinalini Lakshminarayana, the Global Executive Director of IoT, AI and Mixed Reality at Ingram Micro. I will be the moderator for the session. During the session, we will provide you an overview of what is smart cities, some examples of smart city initiatives globally, and you will hear real-world implementations Ingram Micro and partners have been a part of. So now let's start. International Data Corporation, IDC, forecasts smart city technology global spending to reach $189.5 billion in 2023. Smart cities are being built around sustainability, quality of life, and economic growth. The comprehensive strategy will include shared infrastructure, policies for digital government, and removing economic barriers to digitizations for citizens. The results of these would drive multi-year roadmap to build out digital smart city. Many cities will need to leverage the investments already made and build from there. This starts with infrastructure, and IT services will play a very vital role. Here are some questions the cities will want to ask themselves. While upgrading to smart IoT street lighting to be more energy efficient and reduce carbon footprint, can they also be a great spot for providing Wi-Fi to citizens? Can they have gunshot sensors to provide alerts to public safety agencies? Can they have environmental sensors to detect pollution levels? Can sidewalks become smart, have Bluetooth connectivity, connect to sensors in the communities to detect flooding, temperature to model repair scheduling, usage patterns for sidewalks, detect traffic and congestion on streets? Possibly, the sidewalks can automatically send out alarms and create appropriate city service tickets to schedule repairs when needed. Can you build a common infrastructure of Wi-Fi, private LTE, low energy Bluetooth, long-range LoRa that can be used across agencies? Can all the connectivity elements provide affordable connectivity services for economically challenged neighborhoods? Many of the children in low-income neighborhoods have been significantly left behind with lack of access to e-learning during COVID times. Can telemedicine and remote consulting be provided in emergency dispatch situations prior to the arrival at the hospital to provide life-saving first aid and prepare the hospitals for arrival? Can applications be implemented in smart buildings to reduce the carbon footprint and also drive the cost of building management? Can you put sensors in newly laid roads to predict when the roads will be ready for use? Now let's see some examples of counties and cities that have moved from vision to real implementations of IoT for smart cities. In October 2020, Orlando, Florida, launched its first ever smart city strategy. This includes deploying fast electric vehicle charging infrastructure, smart street lighting, improving air quality, and others. Saudi Arabia unveiled plans to build a zero-carbon, hyper-connected city without cars or streets. The city is named The Line. It will be a $5 billion futuristic megacity near the Red Sea. All essential daily services such as schools, medical clinics, leisurely facilities, as well as green spaces will be within 5-minute walk. Surrey County Council in the UK is deploying smart city lighting solution, which is predicted to save around 7,700 tons of carbon emissions each year. Kansas City in the US is using data sets to improve services ranging from water management to healthcare. It has also implemented crime prediction program to better understand where crime will occur and who can help prevent it, as well as pothole prediction program to improve their street maintenance. San Diego has deployed 5,000 smart parking meters and about 3,200 smart street lights, which is one of the largest deployments of streetlight IoT in the US. The data collected from these devices is analyzed and used to solve problems ranging from predicting the next pothole to reducing crime and improving wellness. Major housing companies in the Finnish cities of Helsinki and Vantaa are piloting IoT-based solutions to reduce energy consumption in the blocks of older flats. The city collects data from connected devices used by seniors. It uses machine learning to analyze the information and predicts the outcome, which can then be passed on to caregivers. The city of Newark in New Jersey has turned to AI to safeguard water quality. AI allows the city engineers to adjust the chemical makeup of safe drinking water in real time. The technology also allows the city to preemptively detect problems and undertake remedial measures. The capital of Taiwan, Taipei, has partnered with IoTA Foundation, the creator of distributed ledger technology, and implemented Tangle, which is slightly different from the traditional blockchain. It is focused on providing secure communications and payments between machines on Internet of Things. The South Korean city of Songdo, located 40 miles from Seoul, has implemented smart city use cases. RFID tags on transport provide congestion information, and the citizens will always know via the smartphones and mobile devices the exact status of public transport and its availability. Residents who dispose of garbage will need to use a chip card in the containers. Garbage trucks will not collect and dispose garbage anymore. Each house will have garbage disposal units, and garbage will be sucked from them to garbage treatment centers, which will dispose it in an environmentally friendly way. This gives you an idea about how many countries and cities are leveraging IoT to implement smart cities for their citizens. Now let's get some real examples of Ingram Micro partner experiences with actual IoT smart city implementations. Juniper Research Study Smart City Leading Platforms Segment Analysis and Forecast 2019 to 2023 found that connected smart street lights are set to grow on an average by 42% per annum, reaching close to 70 million units. This is expected to save the city 30% in energy consumption and will last 25% longer. Since the lights are connected and have various connectivity technology options such as LoRa, narrowband IoT, Wi-Fi, they can also provide data from other environmental sensors such as air quality, temperature, gunshot detection, noise level. Additionally, they can also provide Wi-Fi connectivity for citizens. Our first panel is going to discuss the IoT smart lighting and the infrastructure used for a city smart lighting system provided by Ingram Micro partner in the US. In this panel, we have Eric Hembry, the Director of IoT, AI, and Mixed Reality for Ingram Micro US, and Carter Yepsen, IoT Practice Director for Aspire. Over to you, Eric.
Hi, everyone. We're thrilled you could be here with us today. My name is Eric Hembry, and I lead our U.S. group for IoT. And here with us today is Carter Yepsen from Aspire. Carter, thank you so much for joining us today.
Happy to be here.
So, Carter, you've worked with a number of villages and cities on smart lighting and other solutions based on their needs. What can you tell us about their challenges that many of them are facing?
Yeah, thanks for asking. I mean, first of all, every city is different. And so it's tough to generalize. So let's just talk about your neck of the woods, New York State, and talk about some of the challenges that they're seeing. A year ago, it would have been very different, right? I might have had parking or traffic congestion at the top of the list. But now it's items like aging infrastructure has bubbled to the top, public safety, and digital inclusion or the digital divide, is right up there at the top with more people working from home and the school year in flux with students learning from home.
How did the network infrastructure lead to other discussions and needs uncovered when you were talking to those cities and you started to realize that aging infrastructure that was already there?
Yeah. I think cities are very aware that they want to get away from stovepipe solutions. So if you're talking to them, let's say about connected lighting, and that lighting network is ubiquitous throughout the city. They're smart enough to say, what else can I do with that network? And so what we want to do is try to avoid stovepipe networks or single purpose networks and look to leverage that infrastructure for other types of applications. So a great idea is if you're going to that streetlight pole and you're sending a bucket truck out and that streetlight pole is evenly spaced throughout your city or village and it has power, it's a great place to deploy a Wi-Fi access point or a video camera or a sensor, depending on what the use case is. So those streetlights are right where the action is, right? They're at intersections, they're throughout Main Street. So it's a great opportunity.
So when we talk about, the benefits that were realized or the value that was gained by not only implementing, smart lighting solutions, for instance, more importantly, integrating them into the existing infrastructure and systems. What can you tell us about some of that?
So yeah, if you're talking about integrating into legacy systems, whether it's a ticketing system, or an industrial asset management system, I mean, it's sometimes not as easy as it sounds, but it's a great goal. So we just look at different insertion points. So the solutions we deploy are sort of a full stack solution. It has a sensor and a network and an application, and then data comes out of that application. So we look at interfacing the different layers of that stack to the legacy solutions at the municipality, wherever it makes sense. So if ticketing makes sense, if they want to be able to speed response time, that's great. Or if the city planner just wants to extract data out, through an API, that's another type of interface. So it's sort of on a case-by-case basis, depending on what the city's priorities are.
When we talk about data specifically and where that resides, let's talk about the importance of that piece of it, but also the importance of having that open API architecture.
Yeah, great question. The cities have tons of data. It's just probably all over the place. Every city has a GIS system. Every city has lots of asset information. Some of it's still in paper. But what we try to do is get that critical information into one place. So more and more, it's ending up in the cloud. That's easy. And there's a plethora of different applications out there or different analytics tools that provide really quick return on value. Once you do that effort and do those integrations, it's terrific what you can get out of it.
So we all know that IoT is very broad in terms of the type of partners that are needed to deliver a complete solution. What can you tell us about some of the challenges and benefits of a public-private partnership?
Public-private partnerships, yeah. It's interesting getting organizations, companies that have been in the same community with the municipality for many, many years or decades and get them working together. A great example is when the traditional utility that's delivering electricity realizes that there's value to their assets that they can provide to their customers, such as a city. So, it's really looking at what the common goal is, making sure that it's a win-win and making sure that both sides agree to what the goals are and that both sides are fully bought in. If it's too one-sided or it's not a value of both parties, probably not going to work. It'll just, won't even get off the launch pad.
Yeah, when we think about some of those challenges, right? What were kind of those top lessons learned that you experienced throughout the way?
Probably the number one lesson is don't try to boil the ocean, especially when you're doing IoT or smart cities like we're talking about. Try to keep it to a manageable number of projects or sub projects. 3 is a great magic number. Secondly, make sure that each one of those projects is quantifiable. I use the saying, we want to make sure that we can move the needle, and see progress, and have both sides agree with to what that actual goal is or that progress is. So make it quantifiable, not a feeling type of thing. So yeah, those are probably the first 2. Keep it a manageable number and make sure that it's quantifiable.
Going back to the start of the discussion with the city or municipality at this point, when I think through that first engagement, right, there's obviously that network infrastructure assessment of understanding what's there today and what's kind of needed. What process did you and your company take in uncovering not just the baseline need for the solution at hand, which in this case was smart lighting, but looking more future-proof to keep adding on to that existing infrastructure?
Again, great question. First of all, you got to understand what's there in terms of existing networks or existing right-of-ways, where there's power, who owns what assets that you can leverage when you're planning out what the network's going to look like. And before we go down any technology road, we want to establish, an architecture. We always say architecture first, because the applications they deploy will probably last a long time, and that data will last, in essence, forever. But the networks are going to change. So if you have the right architecture, that application can continue to provide value. The data will keep getting to where it needs to go. But, you might deploy a network today that's cellular, that's got to be 5G ready, or maybe I'm using a mesh networking technology, and then there's new networks like Wi-Sun and LoRaWAN coming down the pike and, getting a lot of traction out there. So we don't want to get too invested in any one network. We just want the right architecture so we can be flexible down the road.
So Carter, taking a look at what's next for Aspire, where do you see the future of IoT going, and what are you looking for in partners like Ingram to help you grow and continue to succeed?
Yeah, two-part question. IoT, super exciting. It's bringing us into all types of businesses, all walks of life. So we're having a real exciting time with it. The amount of solutions out there, the number of different sensors, devices, legacy companies integrating IoT-like features into their product lines. It's a great time to be in this business. So, and it's really about the data, more and more about the data. It's easier and easier every iteration to get data out of these systems, and then work with the customer about how to get value out of that. So that brings right back to the second part of the question: is why do we really like working with Ingram Micro? And the real reason is that it's tough for us to do everything. We're Aspire as a network systems integrator. We're really good at designing networks and working with customers on solutions, but we don't have all of those skills to be able to deliver a full stack or end-to-end solution. So Ingram is the first place we go to when we need to, fill in a skill set in our portfolio that we might not have as we go to market. Helps us speed our time to value for the customer. Helps us mitigate risk. Basically, you've vetted these technologies for us. And secondly, just with the contracting it simplifies that element of it. I'd much rather be working with customers than dealing with with contracts and MOUs and things like that.
Thinking more into the future here, what would you say excites you most about your company trajectory, where you guys are heading, and really kind of what's next for IoT that you see kind of big picture?
Aspire is traditionally an IT company, and part of the organization that I work with is in emerging technologies, which includes IoT and analytics, cloud. So where I see the industry going, and particularly for Aspire, is that we're going to see those lines blurred. We're not going to call it IoT down the road. The IoT networks, applications, sensors are going to be integrated in with IT. So when I go to deal with a customer, I'll be dealing with traditional network folks and server folks and cloud and data center folks. That's where I see it going. I see the lines blurring.
So Carter, one last question for you. We kind of gave you a sneak peek prior to the launch of the COE and lets you see a little bit about what's going on in there and some of the solutions that we're standing up. how do you see yourself and Aspire leveraging Ingram Micro and that space specifically to help your company?
Probably the number one thing is that you got to see this. You got to see these sensors and the applications working, particularly if you're talking about any type of edge analytics or machine-to-machine learning. The proof is in the pudding. So a demonstration center like that, where you can actually see it, experience it, is invaluable, both to Aspire as a company that sells, or to our customers as well.
Well, Carter, really appreciate your time today. We're looking forward to having you at our COE very, very soon. Can't thank you enough.
Yeah, I can't wait to be out there.
Thank you, Eric and Carter. That gave us a great understanding of technology elements and the implementation considerations for a smart lighting project, and how the infrastructure implemented for IoT smart lighting can be leveraged for other city needs. Industry analysts IHS Markit projects that 43% of all low-power WAN connections will be based on LoRa technology by 2023. LoRa technology has revolutionized IoT by enabling data communication over long range for miles while using very little power. LoRaWAN fills the technology gap of cellular, Wi-Fi, low-energy Bluetooth-based networks that require either high bandwidth, high power, or have limited range or inability to penetrate deep indoor environments. LoRa devices' long-range capabilities, low data rates, low power, and power to penetrate through physical structures make it flexible for rural or indoor use cases. In smart cities, smart homes, smart buildings, agriculture, smart supply chain, and logistics. LoRa also has the lowest power consumption and lowest cost. LoRaWAN covers long-range use cases at low data rates, making it the preferable technology for low-bandwidth applications, including hard-to-reach locations such as temperature sensors in manufacturing settings, or vibration sensors in concrete, smoke detection, vehicle tracking, room usage, gas metering, and asset tracking. Now let's switch continents and go over to Europe. Bhavesh Patel is the head of IoT, AI, and mixed reality division at Ingram Micro UK. In the last 4 years, he has focused on working with IoT and AI startups. Albert Baker, the COO of Donalto, will showcase how they implemented Cisco LoRa gateways to go with Gully Spy solution to deliver flood monitoring and other smart city solutions for City of Dublin. Take it away, Bhavesh and Albert.
Thank you for that introduction, Mrinalini. Great to be here and sharing a successful use case with you all today. With me is Albert Baker, one of our vendors and co-founder of Donalto, and we are going to be talking to you about a specific use case around flood monitoring, as Mrinalini said. So, Albert, over to you.
Thanks, Bhavesh. So I'm the COO of Donalto, and we work with partners like Ingram Micro to help cities develop actionable insights from smart city IoT deployments. So we do this by delivering end-to-end IoT solutions which present meaningful data to make a change. And in the world we live in today, the sustainability of our cities is critical for citizen well-being, and so we use technology along with Ingram Micro as a partner to make this a reality.
Excellent. Thank you all. So we're going to share our experiences of implementing one specific smart city use case today, and that's flood monitoring. So this is simply one example of such a solution and a solution and a platform that we have deployed. It's not really too difficult to add other use cases, and we will share some more examples as we get to the end of this session. The initial use case had to be deployed over a large area with lots of gully spy sensors spread across at least, I think, 2 kilometer radius. the customer Dublin City Council had a challenge in that they were data poor across a number of critical assets in their drainage system, and we call these street gullies. There are approximately 3,000 of a portfolio of 55,000 of these gullies in Dublin City, which regularly need cleaning or maintenance checks. The numbers involved are many, and trying to gain insight is difficult, as this is quite a harsh environment, as you can appreciate, and needs a device that can be almost like deployed and forgotten, that is for a number of years. Low cost, long life devices were required to be deployed to enable this the city to manage these assets and the maintenance cycles. So whilst we had a range of technologies within the radio spectrum to choose from, we opted for LoRa, long range, low powered, wide area networking. And in particular, we choose Cisco LoRa gateways to go with the Gully Spy solution, which is a Cisco validated design. So Albert, can you share with us why we chose LoRa?
Yeah, absolutely. So LoRa, or long range, which is where the name comes from, it operates independently of licensed networks as we know them. So 3G, 4G, and so on. And they deal with huge numbers of devices which report small amounts of data every few minutes or quite frequently for a number of years. So that's the sweet spot that these networks, the type of use case that these networks address. So the use of LoRa for this use case and many other smart city use cases where devices have to be deployed and forgotten allowed for long life devices, which is the main benefit of LP WAN in this IoT solution. For example, if you have a device in a gully which needs to be revisited, especially over a portfolio of 3,000 quite frequently, the economics of a use case like that become quite challenging. So it allows for a number of years of data to be gathered at a low cost, and avoiding having to use cellular networks and without having to swap out or recharge batteries or actually swap out the device itself.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And can you walk us across some of the key challenges faced by the customer and how Denalto managed to solve this problem?
Yeah, sure. So again, this one is to do with flooding. So the main challenge across Ireland and the UK is increased rainfall. So there's been more rainfall in the last 10 years than there has been in the previous 300. There are very old drainage systems in cities and towns across Ireland and the UK, like 150 years old, etc. So the main challenge is around excessive use of these implements like gullies, which hadn't been seen before. So some of the challenges around getting data from these assets, typically it's around, instrumenting assets that are in hard to reach places like gullies, that are in harsh environments. Again, if we think of a gully which may have leaves in it, it may have, garbage, soil, quite a harsh environment, and crucially at a low power. So that was the challenge. Can we put a device in a pretty nasty spot that will last for 5 years and maybe costs less than $100? That was really the challenge. But the overall challenge kind of lay in being able to maintain and optimize how they manage these gullies, because they were data poor, as you said. So they could only really use guesswork when reacting to flooded gullies, and there was no opportunity to optimize operations or predict flooded gullies and predict when they need to maintain them.
So now that we've heard about the use case and the challenge, let's move on to implementation. Can you describe, Albert, the way we went about with the implementation?
Yeah, sure. So from the network side, again, we're using LoRa. So by nature, this allows the customer to use IoT devices over a wide area with little infrastructure. So, a device can be heard from a gateway, 3 to 6 miles away. So, for example, Dublin City is about 45 square miles. We used 8 Cisco IXM LoRaWAN gateways to cover the whole area. So quite light infrastructure. That was an appealing part of the project. Gateways were hosted on friendly sites. So our customer was the city council, and council offices, stadia, universities, any kind of public buildings that was where we could physically host the gateways. So every gateway has a SIM card in it, and this is how we get back to the cloud application. So that's on the network part. On the device part, it was really important that we made it quite easy and quite fast for these devices to be installed. So the actual Gully Spy device was designed so that these can be installed by field engineers who visit these gullies very frequently. And we use 2 metal straps so that these can be attached to the gully in a matter of minutes. So critically, I think, tools to support the accurate data collection of such devices and use cases were key. And by that, I mean a mobile app was used. So when a Gully Spy device is put into a gully, an installer uses the Donalto mobile app to geotag this device. And that's really important. So if you think of a map of the city, you see a little red gully and a green gully and an orange gully. The location of these devices is very important. Again, the device should be kept simple. So it shouldn't have a GPS in it. It shouldn't be reporting location all the time. It doesn't need to do that. It doesn't move. But the tool to actually deploy these devices was important. And then also on the app, so photos and install notes were possible. So they were the implementation considerations that we came across.
Certainly, and I can, I think you made two important points there. LoRa is quite a light infrastructure, which is good. To think that 8 outdoor Cisco gateways covered such a wide area is fantastic, right?
Yeah.
That's what you mean, light. And the deployment's pretty simple too. In terms of the benefits, can you just share with us how the data from these gully sensors brought about the immense value to the council, and perhaps maybe 3 aspects which the council benefited from?
Yeah, sure. So at a high level, an IoT solution like this, there's sort of a few things that it addresses, but whether it's Gully Spy, whether it's, smart bin or measuring the temperature of a road so you know when to grit, there's sort of a couple of things. So you're optimizing labor, you're facilitating faster reaction times. So whether it's to go and grit, it's to go and clear a gully, it's to go and empty a bin, and you're trying to prevent the future blockages or maintenance events. So in the Gully Spy example, there were basically 2 key data points that were now available to the council, which they didn't have before. So firstly, whether the gully is flooded or not. So that's a real time, they can check their application, see is it red or green. And the second thing was how long it takes for a body of water to actually recess back down into the gully. So the gully floods, there's water on the street. How long does it take for the gully to process this water? And that's really, really key, because if you think about that, that's actually a performance measurement of the gully itself. So we call that time to clear. So these 2 data points were used. So there were 3 aspects, like you said. The first one was being able to react better, so using red, amber, green, and the mapping functionality. So when you have a flash flood or heavy rainfall, which gully to go to and when, that's quite an obvious one. Second one, you've got, over time, you understand the priority of these gullies. If there are 2 gullies, and we had good examples of where they might be 1 block from each other, one might clear in 15 minutes and one might clear in 3 hours. If we're planning our maintenance schedule for the following week, we should definitely go and clean the one that's taking 3 hours to clean. So that was the second use of the data, which again, the customer kind of showed us over time, this is really important. And then finally, the third one, which is I think is the holy grail, is being able to look forward and predict and say, okay, well, based on the rainfall predicted for next week, which gullies can we clean this week so we can actually avoid the flooding event altogether? So that's really taking this time to clear performance of a gully, correlating that with the rainfall expected, and then optimizing your maintenance plans. So they were the 3 parts.
And I guess you correlate that with APIs from weather.com as well, right?
Exactly. So open APIs like weather.com, that can all be taken into the platform. Yeah.
Okay, good. So just, for the audience, just in terms of the way we run our projects, we generally start off by understanding the value that customers are looking to get out of a solution. and we work our way backwards to identify the right technology fit. And in this instance, the aim was to provide a proactive model rather than a reactive model. So hence, thereby reducing unnecessary public and private property infrastructure from flood damage. And they were looking to save time, money, energy spent recovering from flooding events. The use case, this use case identified the need to kind of simplify operations using smart operational intelligence to build a scalable approach to the challenge that was in hand. So working with Donalto, who identified LoRa as being the most suitable technology for the use case, this implementation led up to a 30% OPEX savings, right, Albert, which was pretty significant. I think before we sort of finish, we should just mention, I think I mentioned at the beginning that what we're discussing here has been just around flood monitoring, but we have also deployed some other smart city use cases, and I think it'd be useful just to cover those off as well, Albert. Can you just go across some of those?
Yeah, sure. So if you think about Dublin, then, once we had the LoRa network, out there, in the LoRa ecosystem, for example, which is just one low power wide area network, there are about 350 device vendors worldwide. So it's not just Gully Spy; it can be a whole slew of other devices. So, using these types of networks, city councils or end users like building owners or managers, they can leverage much greater insight than they could have beforehand using cellular networks. So if we think about assets, like anything from a bin on the street to a portfolio of buildings, like a social housing estate or schools, libraries, all the way to a whole network of rivers. So these are good examples of other projects that we've been involved in. Ultimately, smart city projects, I think, are designed to benefit citizens in direct and indirect ways. So directly, one good example, which is quite common now, are air quality monitoring projects. So they will allow decision makers in the city to alter how cities maybe transport goods, where they put trucks, where there's where the air quality is compromised, and that's again to help citizens. And then in indirect ways, really how IoT data can empower cities to manage operations in a much more cost-effective way, just like Gully Spy, or like I said, gritting roads or when to attend to roads. If you can put up a simple device on a road sign to take the temperature every 10 or 15 minutes, rather than going to just grit that road periodically or when you see that it's freezing. If you have that data which allows you to make a decision, do we need to grit that road or not? Yeah. That's very powerful, and it's a simple measurement. So, like in all IoT solutions, the presentation of the data is key, and that needs to drive the action to make a change. Okay, it's like you were saying, Babish, the gathering the data is only one part. So yeah. Predictive maintenance alerts, or they're very, very important. So some of the other projects, I suppose, really were around air quality. Footfall at tourist sites is a big one. Yeah. in some rural areas, and river level monitoring again. Water is a kind of high on the agenda. So that's where we've seen some other good examples.
Yeah, no, and there's lots more than what we've just discussed here, but I think it just gives everyone a good flavour of the work we've done. And not that I want to put you on the spot, Albert, but can you just maybe share your experiences of working with Ingram as a partner?
Oh yeah, so that's been really, really important for us. We're not a large company, and being able to leverage, the network that Ingram Micro has in terms of resellers and services organizations to deliver networks and solutions, that's been absolutely huge. So, even for install, resellers in terms of, Cisco equipment, and then actually deploying networks into very remote areas. Working with Ingram Micro has been one of the reasons that we've been successful in smart city projects.
Great, thanks, Albert. So as you can see at Ingram, we work across the ecosystem to bring together a range of IoT solutions that cumulatively have a value greater than the sum of its part. We work closely with a few high-quality partners and really help them scale their IoT and AI business units. Essentially, we are what I would say a one-stop practice to deploy IoT at scale. So it's got hardware, software, and services. In closing, I'd like to say, first of all, Albert, thanks very much for joining us today and sharing with us some of the experiences we've had together. And thank you all for the time you've taken to be with us today, albeit virtually. If you have any questions or would like further information, feel free to reach out to myself and or my team, and we'll be very happy to assist you. Thank you.
Thanks, Bhavesh.
Thank you, Bhavesh and Albert, for sharing your experience and customer value in smart city IoT implementations. Up next, let's talk about what Ingram Micro Canada is doing in the smart city space. Ingram Micro has established IoT practices in various countries. Savio Lee is the IoT lead for Ingram Micro Canada. Savio, can you provide an overview of what Ingram Micro Canada is doing in IoT?
Sure, absolutely, Mrinalini. Ingram Micro Canada, we really leverages our strength as a distributor and plays the critical role of an IoT aggregator and an orchestration platform. Our entire IoT strategy is really built from the ground up with the channel and end customer in mind. We do this by taking an architectural approach to IoT, and what that means is that it's holistic and end-to-end, which means we don't really define IoT as sensors, cloud, edge, or edge computing. We really look at IoT as a whole and focus on achieving business outcome. The next thing we have as part of our architectural approach is that we also have a unified ecosystem. And more than just a best of breeds and robust ecosystem, it's also a pre-integrated ecosystem of technology partners and vendors. What that means is that we have done the heavy lifting of integrating our ecosystem partners so that our partners and end customers do not have to. We also offer maximum flexibility, which means a comprehensive and flexible ecosystem to accommodate what is typically a very complex and heterogeneous environment and physical world for connecting to things, systems, and process. Open ecosystem, which also means that all our technology partners has the ability to share data with any system or third-party application. And finally, as part of our architectural approach, is that we recognize that the true value of IoT is in the data. And we have invested a lot of time and efforts to enable our partners, as well as their customers, to really harness the power of data and also get data to the right person at the right time at the right place. This entire architectural approach is really built on three foundation pillars. Number one is the broadest IoT ecosystem. For example, we offer 200 plus ready to deploy sensors for a wide range of use cases across all verticals, including edge computing, connectivity that is specific to IoT devices, application, and analytics. The next foundation is we take a very solution-centric approach. At the same time, we want to allow our customers to think big, but enable them to start small without breaking their banks, right? And we have reference design and end-to-end solutions that are cost-effective, very scalable, and very modular in nature as well. And finally, as part of our go-to-market strategy and how we support our partners, is that we also offer innovative support and services designed to minimize risk as well as maximize ROI, including high-touch support, trainings, along with the financial support for our partners as well as the customer to succeed in IoT.
That's a great perspective to IoT, because IoT is complex and you have demystified IoT for the customers and made it easy for adoption by building the ecosystem and also building the services that is needed around it to comprehensively provide what the customer needs are. Thanks, Savio, for that. Now let's get some perspective from an Ingram Micro partner on IoT. We have here Matthew Edwards, the sales manager for public sector, CDW Canada. Matthew, thanks for joining us on this panel. Based on what Savio has said, can you provide your experience on Ingram Micro and CDW IoT partnership?
When I think about our partnership with Ingram Micro in terms of their IoT strategy, CDW Canada, we have a lot of experts that really specialize in point solutions such as networking, such as security, such as areas like the cloud. And when it comes to things like IoT, customers are really looking to realize value from different data points, right? Ingram Micro really helps us put that together. They've got a whole ecosystem of partnerships with sensor manufacturers, that really kind of helps complete an IoT solution. CDW doesn't have that without that partnership with Ingram Micro and the kind of the worldwide ecosystem that they've built. Beyond that, to help realize that data, Savio's team has really helped put together different platforms that customers can then leverage to actually realize the value of the data, right, of the solution that we've put together. That's something that's kind of above and beyond anything that we provide, and we really look to Savio's team to help us put together those packages for the customer.
Thanks, Matthew, for that perspective. I think Ingram Micro also considers CDW to be a great partner to work with, and the IT expertise that you bring in, married with the IoT expertise coming from the Ingram Micro Canada team, is a great match. Can you provide some examples of customer solutions and projects that you have implemented with Ingram Micro, and how do your customers benefit from these implementations?
Absolutely. So, we've got a couple of great examples recently, which is fantastic. One of the cities that we worked with, my team along with Savio's team, this city was looking at putting in, expanding their bike lanes across the city, right, and really kind of, building those out onto different pathways. And they were getting actually some pushback, from different citizens. They were actually kind of questioning, why do we need all these bike lanes? How many bikes are actually using these bike lanes? We're taking up more of the roadway, right? Like, why are we doing this? So that was a real world example of an issue that the city was having, in terms of engaging with their citizens. So we helped, by putting together a camera and analytics platform to actually help them be able to count the amount of bicycles that are using these. We could help them, decide how, when are bicycles using these bike lanes, what days of the week are they more often used, right? So it really helped them, put together some information that they could bring back to citizens and say, listen, we've actually we've actually analyzed the data, and we see that this is the amount of bikes that are actually using the infrastructure that we've built. And when they have that data to go back to citizens, it really kind of helps them with their use case, right, when they're looking to expand this network across the city. So I think that was a really good use case. One of the more recent ones we've done is with a higher education campus. And their main concern was really around space utilization, right? They're looking at expanding. They were looking at expanding into, to new buildings, and what they wanted to do was analyze, some data sets from their existing campuses. How many people are actually using some of the rooms that that they have at the college, right? If a room is, this size, how many people are actually using it? Are we actually, being efficient in the space that we're building out? So, with Savio's team, we again did a people counting solution with cameras and analytics. So essentially, the college is able to take those data points, look at how many people are using these classrooms, and think about how big do these rooms need to be as they're kind of moving into new buildings, right? That kind of data is really valuable and really helps them design, their campuses in the future.
Data analytics is very key to achieve business outcomes for customers, and these are two great examples that you have actually mentioned, Matthew, about how you can solve customer problems using data analytics. Thanks for sharing these customer use cases with us. Now let's switch gears and talk about IoT from the lens of a vendor. Devlin Norris, the Distribution Account Executive for Intel, is here with us. Devlin, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.
When we think about Intel, we think processor. How is Intel involved in IoT?
That's a great question. Um, I look at Intel as a data company. Yes, of course, we're known for our processors, but if you spin the clock back to, say, for example, the early 1980s, when the Ethernet specification was being crafted, Intel, along with Digital and Xerox, put the DIC specification together, which was the forerunner to what eventually became 802.11. Now, you could ask the same question then. Why was Intel involved in Ethernet? We wanted to ensure that the various systems could talk together in an efficient, consistent, structured way. The goal there was to move data from point A to point B and ultimately allow for more data to be transported. IoT is very similar in that philosophy. It's enlightened self-interest. If we can lower the barrier to entry from edge to cloud to allow IT integrators like CDW and others, we propagate more data in the system, which ultimately become analyzed, which you were talking about earlier, hopefully on an Intel CPU. Does that make sense? So as we drive more data through from edge to cloud, ultimately they end up getting analyzed on an Intel system, which provides better business outcomes and so forth. So our goal within IoT is to build a framework, a series of building blocks that allow integrators to build solutions that scale and are replicable around the world.
Okay. What is the motivation behind Intel IoT aggregator program? Who are the stakeholders? Who do the participants, how do the participants, customers, vendors, and partners benefit from it?
Yeah, that's a great question. So the Intel aggregator program came out about 3 years ago, and it's designed for distributors like Ingram and other companies to effectively aggregate the vendors that they have to deliver what we call market-ready solutions, MRS solutions. One of the big challenges with IoT is ensuring that all of the different elements from the edge sensors to the gateway, right through to the cloud storage device, that all of those elements talk to each other and are vetted and tested. You can spend an awful lot of time as a small integrator trying to figure out what all those building blocks look like and make them talk to each other seamlessly. We've done all that heavy lifting for you. So the aggregator effectively takes these Intel recipes or market-ready solutions and delivers them to the channel. The channel has then already stress-tested, bulletproof recipes that they can pick from, whether it's in industrial IoT or smart building solutions, visual analytics, security solutions, what have you. There's about 150 and growing recipes from around the world that have been stress tested and are part of the aggregator program. And then Ingram Micro, Savio and his team look through those recipes, find the ones that best suit his market, and adopt them and scale them in the channel domestically. In terms of the key stakeholders, I mean, clearly we are, along with our other solution partners. So we're trying to approach this from a best of breed solutions architecture standpoint, rather than a monolithic, purely single source vendor solution. That allows for incredible flexibility, but it does have some inherent complexity as well. So ensuring that all those modules, that all those key stakeholders, those vendors, all work together, interoperate to deliver a viable solution, and that's the work that we do as well, right? And then it's people like Savio who take those, working with IT solution providers to deliver a proof of concept to an end user and deliver ultimately a business outcome. So that. I hope that answers the question. There are a lot of moving parts in the aggregator program, but at the end of the day, you've got a company like Intel who's done a lot of the heavy lifting ahead of time to make it easier for IT solution providers to deliver business outcomes for their customers.
Intel Aggregator program has been adopted by various Ingram Micro IoT teams across different countries, and they have worked with their partners to provide solutions for their customers. So the aggregator program has been very successful from that perspective, and we always, and that partners have also benefited from that. That's what we have found helped them to get to a POC very quickly.
It's also bidirectional. If Savio and his team in country find a solution that is unique and is replicable, scalable, they can submit those to Intel as a market-ready solution, and when it's approved, it becomes part of our recipe book that we promote across the world. So for Canadian ISVs, for example, working with Savio and his team, they can now get reach through those MRS solutions worldwide and move that way.
Thank you for that feedback. I think you've already touched on your experience as a vendor with Savio's team. Could you talk about your experience as a vendor working overall with Ingram Micro Canada on IoT? Anything more you want to add?
Sure, I do. I do, because Ingram Micro in general, Canada specifically, I've had the pleasure of working with Ingram Micro in Canada for over 20 years now. And what separates it from the other distributors that I work with is they have a very Wayne Gretzky approach, to use a hockey metaphor, being Canadian, have a very Wayne Gretzky approach to the market, in that they try to anticipate where the puck is going, where the market is going, and make investments before that market is matured. So when Ingram saw that there would be a bifurcation, a separation between the mobile device and cell phone plans, because in Canada they'd always been monolithic, right? You'd go to your cell phone service provider and get your cell phone from them. But they saw that in Europe, for example, those things had already been split apart, and that there was a viable market for devices separate from your data plan. Ingram Micro in Canada went and acquired a number of companies that would position them effectively for when the Canadian market transitioned to a model that would allow them to do that. And they now do a lot of evergreen programs, refurbishment, and full life cycle management for cell phones. So when Savio approached me, about 4 years ago, about IoT, it was the same thing. IoT was a nascent technology for the IT market in Canada, but it was clear that that's where we would end up going with cloud enablement. So that's a unique perspective, and I appreciate and admire that. And the first year was really just tough sledding. A lot of it was spent on IoT definitions and vendor identification and line card build out, and then solutions, and then reseller partners, and then so it's been an evolutionary process, and it's been fun to be involved with that right from the very beginning.
Thank you very much for that, Devlin. I think with great opportunities come great complexities. IoT is one of the complex systems that you would actually see, and I think demystifying it by producing market-ready solutions is very valuable. IoT can provide tangible return on investments for both partners as well as customers. To maximize the opportunity of success, partnering with companies with expertise and ecosystem in IoT is very, very essential. Ingram Micro is a partner for that. Just like Savio, organization, like you said, Devlin, Ingram Micro is invested in different countries in the IoT expertise, and is well positioned to help you realize the promise of IoT. This has been a great discussion. Savio, Matthew, and Devlin, thank you for being here and sharing your insights and your experience. I think this is going to be very valuable for our partners and our customers to hear from you guys in terms of your experience. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
City leaders thought of smart technologies primarily as a tool for becoming more efficient behind the scenes. Now technology is being injected more directly into the lives of residents. Smartphones have become the key to the city, putting instant information about transit, traffic, health services, safety alerts, and community news into millions of hands. This requires not only applications, data analytics, communication technology, connectivity, and sensors, but also policies for sharing information across agencies. Smart city implementations have started in your cities and in cities near you. IoT is a significant part of the smart city. IT plays a major role in these implementations. There is an expected investment of $189.5 billion by 2023. This investment is just growing over the following years. Ingram Micro partners in the public sector have huge opportunities to upskill and adopt this growing market. Ingram Micro has IoT-focused teams in many countries to support the partners to grow into the space. Leverage them to grow into IoT. Think big, act small, move fast to IoT. Coming up after the break, you will see live demos of IoT solutions and overview of specific technologies used in smart cities from Lenovo, Palo Alto, and Microsoft. So get up, stretch your legs, and get some water. We'll see you back in 15 minutes.